Hello everyone, my name is Brian. I'm here from Pittsburgh and I'm the CEO of a company called Modular. So at Modular, our vision is to fundamentally change how we design and build homes here in the United States. I was trained as an architect, went to architecture school, and in school they tell you about how important good design is and the health of the occupant. And then you get out in the real world and you realize that sometimes what gets built is actually not necessarily serving the health and the well-being of the person who's living in that space, but it could be serving the bottom line on the pro forma of the developer that built that. And so really why we started Modular was to change that conversation, essentially. So when I think about the problem we're faced with housing, it's the fact, and Ted alluded to it earlier, about the lack of innovation that's happened in our industry and some of the constraints that provides for our industry. So on the left is the last big disruptive innovation in single-family housing, and it happened in 1947, suburban subdivision, Levittown, New York. This changed the way Americans live, and that solution may have been appropriate in the 1940s, but we're living in the almost the 2020s, and that's a problem. A couple of things have changed in our industry since then. The demographics have shifted. So number one household in the U.S. is a single person living alone. Number two household is two adults living together. And so this solution was really built around a nuclear family, mom, dad, and three kids. And so the demographics have shifted. The labor shortage, which our speaker earlier alluded to in the opening plenary about the labor shortage that a lot of construction companies are facing. And then finally, the way we buy things, right? Back in the 1950s, you may call up a realtor to figure out where you want to go buy a house, and now you log on to Zillow as your first step. So these things are changing, but we're still building homes the same way, and that's a problem. So our solution at Modular is to give home buyers the right amount of space at the right time. Buy a well-sized, well-designed starter home that can be added onto and change as a customer's needs change. So if you think about a starter home as a young family, young couple, maybe not even a family yet, you may have yourself, a partner, and a dog, but kids are on the way, and so you need more space. So that could be a reason to add on. It could be that you have an aging grandparent or parent, and they would need to move into the house. So really, your family structure may change at that point, and you may need more space. Or even the idea with many entry-level buyers are renting out part of their home. So how could you add a unit that you could rent out on Airbnb or even as a rental income into your house as you're growing into your home? So really think about the home more as a dynamic object than a static one. And so at Modular, we're taking a home like this, a simple one-bedroom, one-bathroom home, and over time, how can you turn that into a three-bedroom, two-bathroom home? So how do you grow into your home as opposed to move up and move out? Our goal is to be a leading sustainable housing brand over the next 10 years. And how do we do that? We're starting in Pittsburgh, and I'll give you guys a little bit of insight into what we're doing specifically to try to have this large problem solution for that problem. So at Modular, we are essentially a 21st century home builder. We are leveraging a digital platform, so a digital experience to purchase that home. We are leveraging the top-of-the-line prefab construction partners in the industry. We actually worked with Ted, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then finally, we have an expandable building system. So we have patents pending on a roof and wall system that allow us to add stories onto our homes as you're living in them. So for the customer, we're trying to simplify the process. And essentially what we do as a company is we help a customer find land through our website. So we'll help them find land, work through their financing and budgeting. And then we will also do the design and permitting in-house. So our background, sort of our team of initial co-founders has a design background. So that's one of our core competencies. And then what we don't do in-house and we work with third parties on are the actual manufacturing. So the offsite construction manufacturer, and then the actual general contractor as well. So really we are almost a customer-facing home builder that's trying to redesign the process of buying a house and thinking about a responsible way that actually matters for the person who's going to live in that house. So this is an example of our starter homes. These are all on our website. So you'll notice one thing in particular, they're smaller than the average home that's probably being sold in the United States today. And we did that because of the demographics I spoke about earlier, where we have millennials entering the age of the home ownership, burdened by student loan debt, may not have families yet. And you also have a lot of baby boomers who are empty nesters looking to downsize. They don't need 5 or 6 bedrooms, those two buyer profiles. So that's why we created these set, essentially, of starter homes. So it's 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, and then we actually have a stacked duplex where you can have a rentable unit on the ground floor. You'll notice that these are skinnier, and that's because we're working on the urban infill. We're working in Pittsburgh, so we really designed these starter homes based on that. Our homes, in terms of the performance, do we have any building performance nuts in the room? Okay, a couple. So we're designing to the Department of Energy Zero Energy Ready program, and so it's a DOE program that uses 2018 Energy Code, low-flow fixtures, and then we have EPA. Our homes are certified for EPA Indoor Air Quality, and EPA Indoor Air Plus. So we're using essentially more insulation and fixtures that can help your home eventually become net zero if you were to add solar panels onto it. There's actually conduit that we run on the side of our house that in the future, if you want to add solar panels, you can. We do leverage precision offsite construction, which I'll talk about later, and then we have sort of a good, better, best finish. So how we're finding customers and how we're taking them through the process is through this digital platform that we're building out today. So I'll show you guys today something that we're working on. So it's not fully in production yet, but this is sort of the user experience when we think about a customer who's going to buy a module house, what they will go through. So these are sort of a series of screens where we're helping them solve different problems. How do they find land? How do they figure out what the right-sized home is? And then how do they purchase additions and upgrades as they're living in the house? So this video gives you a sense of when a customer will come to our website, we'll first learn a little bit about who they are. What are their current, where are they living today? Are they living in an apartment or a house? Where would they like to live in the city of Pittsburgh? Where are they in their search timeline? And then what are their needs as of today, as of 2019? And then finally, budget. So we take that information and we say, here are the potential locations. Here are the vacant lots in Pittsburgh that you could purchase. And you can reserve those. And then after finding that particular lot, they could look at essentially different starter homes that could fit on that lot. So, the average Pittsburgh infill lot is about 25 feet by 50 to 100 feet. And so a lot of our designs are specifically for that size. So they can play around with different ideas, different additions, and just kind of think about what their home could be today and how that could be different in the future. And then they can, go through this reservation process, and that gets them started. So that's kind of a window into what we're building on this digital platform. And then, as I mentioned, we also are leveraging offsite construction. So are people in the room familiar with offsite construction? Raise your hand. Okay. Has anyone worked on a project with offsite construction? Okay, great. So we work with 2 types of manufacturers, both panelized and modular manufacturers. So on the panelization side, Ted's company, Benson Wood, Tectonics, they're building a closed panel, so it has insulation, sheathing, windows and doors installed in the factory, and then it's shipped to the site. So those are sort of 2-dimensional, and they're shipped on a truck and craned into place. And then we also work with modular manufacturers as well, and those are actually 3-dimensional boxes. So you can see very similar to the Indie Dwell, except it's not with shipping containers. We use wood frame construction, so traditional construction methods, traditional construction materials just built in a factory setting. What's the difference? What are some of the benefits and drawbacks of each? On the panelized side, you're going to complete 30 to 40%, is what we think you can get to in the factory. On the modular side, you can get 60 to 80% complete. What we find, and what we found with Ted's company, is that the panel manufacturers are a lot more sophisticated in terms of automation in their factories, in terms of building performance. On the modular side, they're doing a lot of framing the same way you frame outside, but in a covered environment. So that's what we found, at least in our sort of road trip through the manufacturers of the East Coast of the United States. So this is actually the time lapse for our first home. And we did work with Benson Wood and Tectonics, so their new spin-out Tectonics on this. So you'll see that this was on December 17th in the city of Pittsburgh, which is not a pleasant time to be building a house. And so in one day, we installed the wall panels, and then on the second day we came out at 9 a.m. and by 1 p.m. I believe we were done with our 6 roof panels. And so you can imagine how our GC felt that they were dried in and able to get to work on the inside because of this solution. So this was the first home we built, and it was really exciting to see kind of the benefits of offsite construction, especially when you're building in the winter in Pittsburgh. So as we think about our company, we will start on projects like this, but eventually we want to get to the scale. How do we be building thousands of units a year in different parts of the country? So we're going to work with individual consumers right now on our website, but we'd start to like to work with, we call them mom and pop real estate developers. So folks who may have several rental units in their neighborhood and maybe they have 20 rental units and now they bought some property and they're figuring out, how do I become a developer? So we see that as sort of an entry-level point before going to work with some of the larger builders in the country. So that's sort of our path to market. But we're going to be working in a unique niche, I'll call it, these urban infill Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So think Pittsburgh, think Philadelphia, places like Detroit. Those are the areas where we think we can add value. So this is actually a map of Pittsburgh, and there's 3 rivers here. But every single one of these black spaces on the map is a vacant lot. And Pittsburgh is a Rust Belt town. In the 1980s, the steel industry died, and half the city left. And this is not uncommon in other cities in the Northeast and in the Midwest. And so that's where we see an opportunity to actually turn blighted vacant properties into productive housing, responsible productive housing. So in Pittsburgh, we have 27,000 vacant lots. That's not in like the metro area. That's in the actual city proper of Pittsburgh. So there's more than enough space to be building, and there's a need for this infill housing solution, right? We're working on the single-family 2-unit, 3-unit dwellings. We're not doing large multifamily. And there's just some other stats about Philadelphia and Detroit in terms of vacant available lots. So there's a lot of opportunity for this. So this is the very first lot that we built on. 25 feet wide, an existing garage, and it was small. This is our client, Annabelle and Jason, but we actually didn't build the house for them. We built it for their parents who were looking to downsize. So Annabelle and Jason actually purchased this vacant lot, which sits behind their house in the city. So they purchased it 4 years ago with the intent of building essentially a mother-in-law unit. Now, ADUs are not legal in Pittsburgh. This was on a separate lot, but it was basically an ADU at heart. This is a little video about the project. Oops, I'll back up. Okay. This is a little video that we showed about the process of building this house.
Allie and I were doing a walkthrough, check on progress. Now we're in the final phase. We're getting to the finish line.
Our first house is for Annabelle and Jason, and they have been fantastic. We are really lucky to have found them.
So it was kind of a shock after taking 4 to 6 weeks to get the foundation to having walls and a roof in 2 days.
It's been very shocking to have a structure pop up, 2 days later, right in our backyard.
And then it just kind of snowballed from there.
I can't wait to see it completed. We've put a ton of time, a ton of effort into this design and this build, and yeah, we're really, really excited to deliver on this for them.
So we just finished construction in April on this, and we actually don't even have the final photos yet, so I grabbed some from the construction site. This is prior to us putting in the porous pavers. But this is the house. It's 880 square feet. It's fun. It's funky. It's across from this community garden space, so it really stands out on purpose. Our client, Annabelle, too, has sort of this bubbly personality. So the facade on this relates to her, and there's this, the community garden is called the octopus garden. There's this kind of undulating octopus that's blue, so we played off that for the facade. Floor plan is pretty standard and straightforward. It's 1 bedroom in the back with a king-size bed, a really nice deck, and then 1 bathroom, full kitchen and living, and then an off-street parking space with permeable pavers. The bathroom is sized, not ADA accessible, but sized for if someone were aging in place, that they could, actually there's a zero-step entry into the shower and things like that. This is the inside. And we've been hosting open house tours throughout the past couple of weeks. So if any of you find yourself in Pittsburgh, we give tours on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's just a shot of the living Nook. Because our homes are smaller, things like built-in furniture become important. And then this is one of the next projects we're working on. This is you talked about mixed income housing. We're trying to be creative in Pittsburgh. These are vacant lots owned by the city, and we're going to be building 4 units, a duplex, and then 2 single families, and we're looking to sell this to an 80% AMI buyer by leveraging some local creative financing. So that's one of the next projects we're working on, but that's all I have for you today.